Wheatley, and welcome to episode 109 of the Weekly podcast. Thank you very much for joining us on YouTube or Spotify, all those places, the usual places. You might subscribe to our YouTube channel if you could. That is always helpful. I want to thank Rebecca Allen for coming on last week. Very honest and open interview. She was really it's really great to give her time during a difficult period for her, because I know what it's like trying to kind of get yourself up for a chat when you are struggling with mental health issues. And she was really great, and we really appreciate that. We'll get into our episode this week. Our guest is a professional MMA fighter and coach, and her name is Indra Davis. How you doing, Indra?
Hi, good, thank you.
Thank you very much for coming on this wet Saturday. I'm not going to. We won't go into the mix-up, but basically, I was getting all the dates wrong and basically confusing everybody around me. I'm glad we got it together at the end. We will begin where we always do. Indra, could you give us a short history of your upbringing, please?
Yeah, my upbringing. It's not very straightforward. My parents are German, so they grew up in Germany. Post-war Germany, and they moved to Ireland, I guess, in an effort to get away from, I think, the urbanization that was going on at the time. They wanted to move, when they first moved to Ireland, you know, the town we moved to, just outside Gort, here in County Galway, there was still some owl lads coming in a horse and cart back then to do their weekly shopping. And I think for my parents coming from this really urbanized kind of area of Germany, it just seemed totally idyllic. So they found a place to live here anyway, and built a house and so on. And I grew up with German parents in a very Irish neighborhood, and it was interesting, I suppose, to say the least. I had to find my footing. I didn't have a word of English when I started national school, very rural national school. I was lucky, I think, going through school, that I made a couple of very good friends that kind of helped me feel like I belonged more. But I definitely had a lot of time where I spent feeling like a bit of an outsider as well. So starting secondary school then in Gort, it was a bit the same. I always felt that culturally I didn't kind of fit in. And I think what that caused was me to make more of an effort always to fit in. So I became a bit of a chameleon. I took on the accent, and I think a lot of foreign children in other countries do that. We try to fit in. We kind of almost overdo trying to fit in, and try to please a lot and get on with everybody. So I would say everything was hunky-dory. I really enjoyed my childhood growing up here in the countryside. We had horses, we had a little farm, and we lived right by the forest. It was a great childhood. My parents divorced when I was about 7 years of age. So there was a little hiccup there, certainly. But I don't think I didn't think about how it affected me at all until I'd say I was nearly in my 30s when I started really looking back and going, did that have an impact? And I think that's the same as most things in life. Life happens around us, and it's only later on when we kind of go, I wonder how that affected me. So I did college in Galway, studied in NUIG in Galway, got a Bachelor of Arts, started volunteering as a youth worker in the youth cafe there in Galway City at the time, nearly 20 years ago, I'd say. Got a job 6 months later as a youth justice worker. So I work in a Garda Youth Diversion project. Actually, we've just changed the name. They've taken the Garda out of it, so it's a youth diversion project. They were kind of feeling that it was a turn off for some people to have the Garda in there. So and I've been in that job for nearly 12 or 13 years now. So yeah.
Thank you very much. That was very substantial. I like. No, I like it. That's a positive, a very positive thing. So the next question is always like, when did you first become aware of mental health? And you talked a little bit about school and adapting to things in school. Like, was that the kind of your first kind of introduction into it, or were you old enough to kind of think of it in those terms?
Yeah, no, I think it's something that people are obviously in the last few years talk a lot more about mental health. So I'm not quite sure when it happened, and it is something that I was listening to your last the podcast before your last one with your friend from school, you know, and the question came up about when did you first start thinking about mental health, and I did contemplate that a bit, and I think life happens to us, and I think when it's happening, we get on with it, you know, and I think that's a little bit our survival instincts kind of kick in. And I find for me, it's only always anytime after the fact that I look and I analyze and I kind of look inward a little bit more once I've come through something. But I suppose in the job that I do, working with young people who are at risk, that's when I started looking at it more substantially, you know, and looking at it on paper, I guess, rather than just looking at myself. When I was a young person, I think I was about 12, I started writing a diary, and I still have all my diaries. I wrote diaries all the way through my teens, well into my 20s. I wish I still did it now.
Yeah.
Because for me, I suppose that was me looking at my mental health, you know. But yeah, it's a topic more and more these days, and I think a lot of people are looking at it more, which I think is really good. Yeah, I can't tell you when it started, but it's definitely something that's grown, I think, with society and with myself, you know.
Yeah, I get it, and it is one of those questions. It's quite a hard one to put your finger on when exactly it was, you know. And I understand that. So, when you were growing up, were you a sporty person? Okay. At all.
This is so funny, you know, when I look back at who I played a bit of basketball in school, but I really played basketball, so I had, you know, because my friends did it, and you know, to get time out of class, I played basketball. I wasn't even that good at it, like at all. You know, and then in my 20s, when I was in college, I partied a lot. I was dancing, hanging out all weekend, being awake all night. That was basically my exercise was dancing. I'd get tired running up the stairs. I wasn't sporty at all. No. Answer that question quite smoothly.
Yeah. So what then was your introduction to MMA?
Yeah, my husband.
Okay.
I met Ben. Well, myself and Ben knew each other for years. Our parents were friends, so when we were teenagers, we knew each other. My dad used to hide me from him when they come and visit. Where's Indra? Oh, you don't need to know where Indra is. But then in our early mid-20s, he moved closer to where we were, and we connected again. Our friendship kind of grew. And then he was at that stage a professional MMA fighter. He started off with boxing and then went into MMA. He was training in a club in Galway in Point Blank. And he got a group of us, basically me and a couple of others, my friends, my ex-boyfriend and a couple other friends of ours. We got together, and he would teach us on a Sunday, kind of get us doing it. And even then, it was more for the crack, for hanging out with people. But once me and him, eventually we got together and we got married and we had kids and whatever. But it was after our second child was born. So that would be about eight years ago now. I just started joining into his classes. He was coaching at the time. He'd started a small group, a little small club. And he was coaching, and he would I just went to get rid of the baby weight. I said, I'll get a bit of fitness in, like get a bit of exercise, try and get fit again. And little by I hated it to start with. I really didn't. I felt so uncoordinated. I felt stupid. I couldn't tell my left from my right. And bit by bit, it just grew on me. And then there's this kind of light bulb moment where it just all suddenly clicked, and I was like, I'm hooked, you know.
Yeah.
So that was the start of it for me.
I think today I can't speak on MMA, but I do jiu-jitsu. So I was rolling today for a couple of hours, and there was one moment, and it was kind of ties in with the question I want to ask. There was one moment where I was kind of just finished a roll and obviously like shattered and lying on my back, but there's something so rewarding about it, you know. And when it comes to my mental health, that is the kind of the main reason why I do jiu-jitsu. And I might have been similar to you at the start, where I was kind of very uncoordinated, not as quick, not as young as the others. But what it does for my mental health is the reason I go.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, I think this is society that we live in nowadays, a lot of it is indoors. A lot of people work indoors. We're not out, we're not doing the hard graft that our grandparents did, working on farms, lifting heavy things. Life just isn't as hard as it used to be. And we've become, I suppose, softer, and we've lost our like confidence in what we're able to do. We don't really realize how hard and tough and strong we really are, mentally as well as physically. So that's where I think all the combat sports, it's all the same. You get into this little battle, and same for, I think, people who go to the gym or lift weights or whatever. There's like this battle of, this is hard, this is tough, my body, oh, can I do one more rep, can I do one more round? And then you do it and you're like, I am able. And it gives you this confidence and this kind of swell of empowerment that we just don't get from anywhere else nowadays anymore. I think anyway.
Yeah, I agree. And there's that beautiful, feeling after leaving the gym, and it might just have been something that you've never done before, and you a particular move or something in jiu-jitsu which you've never done before, and you've managed to pull off, and all of a sudden, like, you've got, your chest is out and your shoulders are back, and that's a feeling, like you mentioned there. It's not a feeling you can get from kind of, well, not usually from everyday life.
Yeah, and I think it's because it's hard, because it's physically, you need a level of endurance, really. It's the perfect combination of your mental strength and your physical strength, and that endurance that you have to push through. Every roll or every round that you do, whether it's striking or jiu-jitsu, there's this internal battle as well as this external battle. And I think winning that and overcoming that, that's where that feeling, that glow that you get, that's where that comes from. And I've never gotten it from anywhere else. And I think that feeling, that's the high that people get addicted to when they do combat sports,
Yeah, I agree. So, but with regards to training to become someone who wants to, have a career, I suppose, at it, or, is what kind of different types of training do you do to supplement your MMA?
Well, I do. I'd say I try and get 2 sessions in every day, 5 days a week. So one of them would be either circuits or some strength training and some weights. I usually try and do that in the morning before work, and then in the evening it's whatever class is on, whether it's jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, MMA. If, like, at the moment, because I'm going to do the Emerald Cup now next weekend, I'm trying to focus more on the jiu-jitsu classes, so I'll time my schedule so that I can attend all of the jiu-jitsu classes. I don't do any running. I feel like I probably should do some. I had knee surgery a few years ago. I got to be careful of my knee whenever I do much running. I really feel it there. So it's really more circuit kind of endurance stuff. I really like circuits, because I can tailor the circuits, and there's plenty of lads, like a couple of professional lads in the gym who know how to help with that as well. So I can really like target what I want to, if I've got a bit of weight that I can afford to put on, I like to maybe try and put on a bit of muscle, a bit of strength. I can tailor everything to that. If I need to lose some weight, you can kind of up the intensity and the reps and so on. So I like circuits the best for that.
Yeah. And I like, it's not one size fits all anyway, and it's whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. Whatever suits you and whatever you prefer to do. Because I see people, some of the lads who are competing in different things like Clan Wars and things like that, where I'm looking at them doing this and this, and then I'll see someone do exactly the opposite of it, and it's like whatever it is. Was your transition into coaching then, and I'm asking this because I'm very much new to it myself, just taking on some classes here and there when I'm asked to. Was your transition to coaching kind of something that you found quite easy, or was there like a bit of imposter syndrome going on, or how did you feel about it?
Yeah, it's another one of those kind of funny, everything about my journey through martial arts has been one of those like, oops, it was an accident kind of, but it was a good accident, or it just so happened this way. I did not plan any of my martial arts career the way it has happened. It was purely an opportunity arose, and I had that, you know, fork in the road. Do I say yes? Do I say no? You know, with the coaching, it was simply, I suppose Ben runs Shaolin MMA. And I had said, listen, we need to get a girls' class together. As much as I think it's great that women training with men, I think it's good for men. I think it's good for women. We both learn something different from each other. I think having a women's class will get the women in the door, make them feeling more confident. So even just doing a short course, maybe, you know, eight weeks, whatever, get them in the door, have them feeling confident, get them used to having the lads around, and bringing their level up to a certain point where they're confident to join in the mixed classes. I said, it's a great idea, let's do it. And he said, yeah, it's a brilliant idea, let's do it. So we advertised it, we signed people up. It was the day of the first class, and we're sitting in reception. I said, so what are you going to teach anyway? Like, what's the plan? Have you got a schedule done up? And he said, what do you mean, what am I going to teach? I said, but there's a load of women coming in. I've got 20 women coming in. And he was like, no, you're teaching the class.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, what? Like, this, we didn't discuss this. He was like, well, it was your idea. Like, you're a woman, you should be teaching the women. I was like, I'm not ready to teach, you know. So anyway, he taught the first, no, well, actually, I lie. We came this close to a domestic in the gym. I was like, there's people coming in now. I'm not teaching this class. I'm not ready. And the first girl walked in the door, Melissa, and she came in early. She was half an hour early. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And yeah, basically Ben said, look, these are the fundamentals. This is what you're teaching. You know this. Go on down and do it. And I very nearly said no. And that's why, I mean, it was like this fork in the road where I could have been afraid, followed the fear, and just walked away from it, and he would have had to teach the class because I'd have left the building. Or I sucked it up and I just did it. And I loved it. And I loved the girls. And, you know, obviously once I knew I was teaching, I put together a real nice plan, and I week to week organized the sessions, and I loved that. And I just got better and better as a competitor myself. I learned so much from teaching, you know, little things like, you know, one of the girls was saying, this armbar isn't working, why isn't this working? I'd be like, okay. And you have to really look and analyze and go, oh, because I actually do this. And things that you sometimes do automatically without thinking about, and then you explain it. And from you having to double check and think twice about something, it really solidifies it in your mind. And I think I got better for coaching, for teaching. And since then, yeah, I love it. I love it.
I think it's, I would agree with getting better as well. It's like, you know, you want to go away, you want to you know, have an interesting class and set up certain, you know, transitions from each move. And it's maybe with something, there might be something in the middle that you haven't looked up, and you think, well, I need to move from this to this. And you do learn, and you learn from others as well, like just the way they might be more efficient in a certain choke by, you know, or whatever it might be. And you're like, I didn't even think of that. So I love it, but I do still have the imposter syndrome thing going on where I'm feeling like, I don't know if I should be doing this, but I just wanted to see from your point of view, and you know, what, because you've got the sisterhood going on down there, is what you call it, and it's I think it's brilliant. I think it's a brilliant idea to have. And has there been actually an increase in, you know, in people women being interested in martial arts? Because we've seen there's some terrible stuff that's going on in the country, you know, tragedies going on, and obviously ye are kind of ahead of the game in the sense that you've already got this set up. Has there been an increased interest in it?
Yeah, I mean, I have gotten in the last 2 months or so since that awful incident, I've gotten loads and loads of requests for one-to-ones specifically, which I don't have time to do because I have a full-time job. So I have a little bit reorganized in my mind my sessions. I would have had my beginner's course kind of set up the way it was. What I have done is I have rewritten it to emphasize the self-defense aspects within MMA, because I said, look, there are people teaching self-defense courses, and I will always refer them on. Dave Joyce, he's a Muay Thai gym in Galway, an absolute gentleman of a man. He took us in when our gym burned down a couple of years ago, so he hosted our classes for quite a while. He's doing self-defense classes down at his place as well since, and specified very much towards self-defense. And if someone wants just that, then I'll refer them down. I am still very specific about teaching MMA, but I have kind of I'm more clear about what aspects of it are good for self-defense, and I'm trying to get that more through to people that, MMA, the reason that I find it so good for self-defense is because it is the martial art that will teach you how to deal with being pushed up against a wall. Like, what other martial arts do you learn how to get out of that situation? And the chances are, as a woman or as a guy, if you get attacked out on the street, you're going to end up with your back on the floor or your back against a wall. So when I'm teaching the MMA classes, I'm not just teaching guard or how to get up from guard. I'm explaining, in a street situation, this is how you can get up or how you can get out or how you can get away. You don't have to fight, but also then how can you come back with it offensively as well. But we have had a lot more women inquiring about it, and I don't want the group to be too big, so I'm trying to find another time to run a second group. But it's been a topic of conversation, and it's come up a lot recently with friends of mine as well, asking questions like, do you think MMA would help you in that kind of a situation? And it's a really hard one to answer because there's so many factors. Is the person attacking you, is he drunk? You can just push him over if he's really drunk. Is he very big? Is he very small? Or she? Or do they know how to fight? Do they not know how to fight? Is there mental health problems? Because it's hard to reason with somebody at some different stages, depending on where they're at. So there's so many factors, but I think the one thing that I keep coming back to in my own mind when I think about it, and when I'm trying to explain it to other mothers that I would have talked to about it as well, is that I think learning combat sport, whether it's striking, MMA or jiu-jitsu, when you're doing the live rounds, the sparring or the rolling, you're forced into a situation where that fight or flight is sparked in you, even though you're safe and you're with your teammates and whatever, but it is a mini fight. And the fear comes up in me every time I go sparring. Doesn't matter who I'm sparring with, could be my husband. I know I'm as safe as I can be, but you still get that little, is this is a fight, so. And I think facing that chaos in your mind and coming through it is the one thing that could actually save you in a real life situation. If you do get attacked, you have that moment where the fight or flight and the chaos and everything's going haywire in your brain, and you're afraid and the fear is kicking in. But because you've been there so many times in training, maybe not in the same situation, but I think it gives you a second where clarity might kick in, where you have that moment of calm in your head and you think, I can deal with this. And all you see is maybe an exit. All you see is a way out. There's a clear path. I'm going that way, and I think that's where having trained in something could save you from a bad outcome.
I think it's a brilliant point to make, because everybody does tend to think of the physical aspect of it rather than the thought process that the way your mind works in I would say jiu-jitsu, but it can extend to any combat sports, but you see kind of clear pictures in your mind to where you want to go, or where you want to take the person you're rolling it, we'll say, or you're fighting with. And I think to have that in your mind, and to have that honed and sharpened, it can only be a good thing for people. And I think it's a very positive thing that what you're doing down there. Indra, if you don't mind, I'll just need to read out an advert and then we'll get right back into it.
No problem.
Okay, let's try this. I'm doing all right with these the last few weeks and I haven't messed up, he said. Okay. Fusion Training Center, Monksland, Athlone, a place to train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, kickboxing, martial arts and CrossFit. A great atmosphere with experienced coaches and a real sense of community. If you want to join the team, find us on Facebook at Fusion Training Center or drop in for a chat. Fusion Training Center. Train like a warrior. God, I'm flying it so far. Thank you very much, Indra. So I wanted to ask a bit about jiu-jitsu because you mentioned the next week the Emerald Cup, but you were very successful. You're a purple belt now, is that right?
Yeah.
So when you were going, you competed as a white belt and competed as a blue belt. I haven't competed before, but when I look at people competing, does the pressure add? With every win on your resume, does the pressure add up? Because I always think it would. I always think like, okay, I'm 3-0, and I have it in my head that I'm 3-0, and then I think, well, I can't lose now because I'm. Do you feel that kind of pressure when you're rolling, or even when you're fighting in MMA?
I think for me, it's a little bit different with jiu-jitsu and with MMA. Like you go to a jiu-jitsu tournament. I mean, if you're lucky as a woman, a purple belt, you get a good bracket and you have maybe 4 people in your bracket. That's 4 matches. Obviously to get gold, you have to win everything, and that's fine. But in MMA, it's like this 3-month, 4-month, 5-month build up to this one fight that could be over in a few seconds, and I think the mentality is a little different for me there. So yeah, with the jiu-jitsu, with the tournaments, I've lost, I'd say, as many as I've won, and I like to think I've won a lot, but I've also lost a lot. And I don't think the pressure is on as much for that, not for me anyway, at the level that I've been doing the jiu-jitsu. Interestingly enough, I get far more nervous stepping on the mats for a jiu-jitsu tournament than I have ever done getting in a cage or into a ring. I don't know why. I still can't. Part of me, I've been chatting to my jiu-jitsu coach, my Brazilian jiu-jitsu coach. He's a professional MMA fighter as well, and just kind of asking him about it, and he said he's the same. And I wonder, is it because we both came from a grappling background and we kind of feel like that's our thing, so we need to be good at that, whereas with the MMA we're like, we're getting there, we're trying, we're the underdog, so the pressure isn't on us as much, but with the jiu-jitsu we're like, we gotta show that we're good, and I suppose we're both coaches and we kind of feel a little bit more pressure there.
That's another thing I often wonder as well, because when I see my coach in a competition in jiu-jitsu, and I wonder, does he feel that kind of pressure because he's the coach, and then all the students are kind of watching, that. And I don't think about him in that way as like he has to win this or he's a terrible coach. It obviously I don't think in that way, but there must be this kind of added pressure that you've felt since you've become a coach.
Yeah, I think we isn't it the same in everything? We all put far, far more pressure on ourselves than we would ever do on other people. We expect more from ourselves in many ways. Whenever one of my students or one of my friends or teammates or whatever has lost a match, all I see is the things they did right, at least that's all I feel. If they want feedback, obviously I'll say, well, you might have done this right or wrong or whatever, but really I have pride for the losses as well as the wins, whereas I think with myself, when I lose, all I see is the bad. Even when I win, all I see is the bad stuff, the things I didn't do right, the opportunities I missed. So I think it is a little different, but I do think with jiu-jitsu, I maybe it depends on how you're taught or who your coaches are and what kind of philosophy is in your gym. But I feel in general that, the whole idea of tapping, it's not I'm quitting. It's you did really well there. You're like, okay, I fucked up something there, but I can come back and I can fix that. I don't feel like there's any shame in tapping. And I think in many ways, a lot of the time you see someone in the gym and they tap, they've actually got a big smile on their face. They're like, I like what you did there. Show me what you did there, And I feel that most people, at least once they get to a certain level, they realize that a tap is more like, okay, ready for the next round, let's learn the next thing. I need to keep learning, rather than an embarrassed, shameful thing to be doing. So I think jiu-jitsu is good like that. It's humbling, but it's empowering,
Yeah, I agree. The tap is almost like an approval thing. You're saying well done for what you did, and you're so right about that. The idea of a lot of people smiling at the end because you're thinking, "But you got me." Like as you did well. You got me, and as you say, we move on to the next. We go again, and that, and that's what's so great about it, and that's what I love about it. You have mentioned about Shaolin burning down. It was about 3 years ago.
Longer than that.
Was it?
Had 2 years
Oh,
of
of
COVID.
course. Of course.
Um,
Forgot about
yeah,
that.
I think it's about 3 years ago now. So
That must have been. I remember seeing it on, on the thought on our news feed or whatever in the
yeah, we had
gym. Yeah, and it was
we had a
just,
GoFundMe for that.
it was shocking. Like,
Yeah, and it was just a freak accident. It was just an electrical fault,
mm,
it was an old building, and there was just something up in the electrics that just went and off it went. And it happened in the middle of a class. So downstairs was the class, the offices, and the reception was upstairs. So luckily the fire was upstairs, but the building was fairly totaled. Like, I mean,
mm,
we couldn't go back in. It took a long time to fix. So in that time we said we were homeless. We didn't have anywhere to train out of, and it came at a time when the fight team was doing really well, and we had a lot of people kind of getting into competition, and it threw a lot of us off the direct path. But what it did do is it really, really I think me and Ben, because it was I mean, we put our freaking life savings into the thing, so for us it was like this moment of shock and horror. But the amount of people that rallied around was phenomenal, and I don't think we would ever have had such an appreciation for the people we have in our lives and the things that they do for martial arts, for each other. It really brought people together, and not just people from our club, but like promoters from other countries who've had our lads on their shows and things like this. It was heartwarming, and it gave us so much strength to go on. And then, like I mentioned before, Dave Joyce, his club was right next door to our place, and he basically said, look, Tuesdays and Thursdays I'm not using my gym. It's all yours, just work away. He just gave us a key. And I just thought, that is the beauty of a martial arts community. We both teach martial arts. We teach different disciplines, fair enough, but there's just that there wasn't any competitiveness. It was just like, everybody come together, let's keep it going, let's keep your momentum going. And from that, then we had 2 years of COVID, and that threw in loads of other problems, and people didn't have anywhere to train, and lads who were on a really good trajectory with their careers as well, things got thrown off, and it was really tough. So and that whole time we were trying to open our new place, our own place, and get out of Dave's hair. But it just took so much longer. It took so much, like even getting like an architect in to do the drawings of how we wanted the place to be laid out and so on, even getting the solicitor to sign off on things. It just took forever. And there did come a point where we thought we can't do it. Like this is never going to happen. When is this ever going to happen? And people were disappearing and moving on, and we just thought, Jesus, this is the worst time, And it was then that we looked back on some of them messages from when the gym burned down, and we went back and we looked at the GoFundMe page and all the messages that were left. There was one mom there, her son might have been in Ben's kids class 10 years ago, and the message, she donated €200, and she just said her kid might have gone for 6 months to our classes, that was all, but she said that time he spent with you altered the way his life was going in such a positive way, and I'll always remember you, and thanks a million. And it was those little things we were like, no, feck it, we have to do this, we have to find a way. So we pushed through with a lot of help from a lot of amazing people, and we moved in December this year, so we finally have the new place open.
And it looks, from the photos, I've obviously haven't been there, but it looks class. And I think about, yourself, you having Ben and Ben having you at the time, in it together, because obviously it's both, it's different if one person's working there and then the other person's working in a different place and they're married or whatever, but you're both in there, and it must be it must have been a huge part of it, and the completion side of things and moving into a new place. I can't imagine the kind of sense of pride that you must have felt for yourselves as well as for all the people who helped you along. So to kind of ask a question off the back of that, which seems unnecessary, what is it like sparring with your husband?
Sparring with him is great fun. Rolling with him is great fun. He brings out the best of me. Having him teach me is a flipping nightmare.
Okay.
He is a wealth, like he is a fountain of knowledge. He has so much to offer, so much to give. I'm so grateful to him, but it's hard. It's so hard, you know. I fully believe he's more critical of me than he would be of somebody else. I think he expects a lot from me, which is good because it is the reason, you know, I learn as much as I do from him. And maybe I talk back a little bit every now and then, and that's not really acceptable, you know, but I love training with him. I love rolling with him. I love sparring with him. When it comes to the grind with him actually teaching me, there's a few moments where we go head to head and it's a little bit like grr. Yeah. But honestly, I would not be the person I am today if it wasn't for he brought martial arts into my life, and it is the absolute center point of my life. Everything revolves around it for me now. And I'll forever be grateful to him for that. Yeah.
We were lucky enough to have the great Danny Nealon on there. It's it's quite a while ago now, actually, strangely, but I can't remember if I asked her the exact same question, because obviously she trains with Alan, her now husband, but a fiance at the time we were talking. But when you see the video of the two of them together, there's an understanding there, and like you're saying, when you train with Bennett, there's that, you know, I'm sure it's the same kind of understanding. And you say like you answer him back and stuff like that, but I suppose that's, I know you say it's not acceptable. That's kind of, that's the maybe the marriage side of it coming out rather than the other side of it, you know. Yeah. But it's obviously working for you, you know, and that's a great thing. So like the other thing I wanted to ask you about was Foroige. I'm terrible with Irish words. You
got it right.
Thanks. Finally, because every time a Irish word comes up, I just get petrified. I think it's my remembering school and just the fear of Irish class.
Yeah, you don't get this wrong.
Don't get this wrong again. But yeah. So what is Foroige?
So it's one of the national youth work organizations. So it's a non-for-profit. It incorporates quite a variety of different forms of youth work. So they're like the organization, umbrella organization, under which they manage quite a few different types of projects. So the project that I'm in is a youth justice project. So we're funded by the Department of Justice, and we work very closely with like the JLOs, the junior liaison officers. They would refer. So we work specifically with referrals. So young people who are getting into a bit of bother, who are at risk of getting involved with the guards and getting into trouble with the law, or are already there, but it's pre-court. So after court, you'd have the probation services involved. Then there's other projects. They're kind of more generic youth projects, so neighborhood youth projects, and they work with the general population, so like all young people in the neighborhood. They would set up maybe soccer clubs, drop-in clubs, art groups, you know, more targeted stuff as well. Maybe then there's a family support as well. They work closely with TUSLA. So really, I think the different types of projects depends on where their funding stream comes from, but Foroige manages all the different projects.
You mentioned getting involved with as a youth worker a number of years ago. What was it that kind of prompted that?
What was it? I think I was in when I went to college, I wanted to study psychology, and I did a couple of years. I did the first 2 years in my Bachelor of Arts, and it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. But one of the other subjects I was studying was sociology, and I realized that was more what I was actually interested in. I was really interested in to see how people worked together, you know, or in response to each other and stuff. So And part of the sociology was there was just a course on youth work, and I found it very interesting. So when I finished my degree, I was, what do you do with a Bachelor of Arts? Most people have it and work in other sectors, but there was a youth cafe in town, and I had the summer off, and I just said, I'm going to go in and volunteer. And there was a lady working in there, Tara Gannon, she still works for Foroige. She took me on as a volunteer, and she just threw me in the deep end. She was like, just run this group, off you go. And I was like, oh, teenagers, what do I do? She was only 21 at the time myself. I still felt like a teenager. And she got me to fill out an application for a job, kind of as a training exercise of how to fill out applications. I got an interview, and she goes, oh, great, go do the interview. Did the interview, went really well, got a second round interview. I was like, this is a joke. How did I get this far? And I got this letter saying, oh, you're going in for a medical, and then you can come and sign your. And I said, what does this mean? And she goes, you got the job. I was like, I didn't even want the job. You told me this is a practice round. So I got the job. So I was 22 years of age, and I was in a very, very serious job all of a sudden, that I, in a way, felt unprepared for. But it's a bit like the martial arts. I feel like a lot of things in my life have kind of steered me in a direction, and I've had a moment where I've come to a crossroads and I've said, will I, won't I, and usually I think about which road makes me the most afraid, take that one. And that's what I've done, and it's served me well so far.
Yeah, it seems to have. So I also read that you have worked. Shaolin has worked with Foroige.
Yeah, so Ben runs Shaolin. I work for Foroige. I guess I just use. So Ben would have come in quite a few times as a volunteer himself. He started off just playing soccer with the lads when I had a soccer group going on or whatever, and then I suppose bit by bit, as the martial arts kicked off, he would have come in as a part-time teacher, and he would have come in and run just kickboxing groups, self-defense groups, small groups, with some of the young people that I work with. Since we have the gym and the venue, the space, colleagues of mine would have run an early morning exercise program in there, which is hugely successful. So what the lads did was they would have collected the kids, the teenagers, from their house at about 7:30 in the morning, brought them into the gym. They'd have done a bit of yoga, circuit training, sometimes some martial arts, and then they send them off to their schools or training centers, kind of feeling awake, awake or tired, but feeling good. And the feedback from the schools and the training centers was that their behavior for the rest of the day was always so much better. They were much easier to manage. Their communication was better. They had higher levels of empathy. They were easier to communicate with. And I think a lot of that is just from, like what we spoke about at the beginning, was just that kind of focus and that clarity that you get from doing something that's you have to exert yourself with,
Yeah, like I've seen some schools come into the gym, and I've seen Martin teach them in kickboxing. And if there's a class of 30 there, sometimes just from me observing, you'll see 4 or 5 of them be really into it all, like almost straight away, and almost have it down, this kind of the movement and stuff. And you're kind of going, that guy actually, I don't know what I'm doing, but that guy looks like he knows what he's doing. Yeah. But then they will come into the class, then, they'll turn up for one of the classes, and there's something really, it must be very rewarding for you to see that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where I suppose it evolved after that. I would have had, so a lot of my work would be one-to-one. We do group work as well in the Justice Project, but I find a lot of the time, the one-to-one stuff, you get further faster, and so you got a 16, 17-year-old young lad, 15, whatever, and they've been referred to you, and sometimes you're just another worker, sometimes they have social work involvement, they have a load of different people, adults involved in their lives, and in some ways they feel like meddling in their lives, so suddenly I have this teenage lad or girl sitting across from me in the office, and I'm saying, so how did you get into this situation? And they're just like, oh, go away from around me,
yeah.
You weird old lady. So what I would do a lot of the time to break the ice is I bring them in the gym, you know, and do pads with them, get them punching a punching bag for 15 minutes, getting them tired, get them to do a bit of exercise, and then get chatting, you know, or chatting in the car. Sometimes that drive, you know, there's none of that awkward eye contact stuff going on. So go for a drive with them, drop them home afterwards. But the gym there, it's a really nice way of getting them to communicate sometimes without them even knowing that they're doing it. And they learn to trust you as well a little bit more when you go on a similar level. You know, I think sitting in an office across the desk from each other, it doesn't bring out that level of relationship, you know. And then what we do is Ben's entire philosophy around Shaolin is basically, if you can't afford to train, you train anyway, you know, come in. So we have sponsored young lads, anyone that I work with in Foroige, any young person that's referred to me automatically can come in to the gym and train for free. Obviously there's a little meeting, we sit down, we say, you know, let's do a month, see how you get on. Attendance is obviously, you know, important, and if they're not playing ball, then we can sit down again and whatever, if we think they're taking the mick or whatever. But very much like, if you want to train, this is here for you, no questions asked. And some of those lads, you know, sometimes they disappear, and this is what I've noticed more and more. Sometimes they disappear for maybe 2 or 3 years, and then they hit 20 and suddenly they're back, and you're like, hey, it's good to see you. And they're back and they got a job now, I can pay now, you know, and they're paying their membership, and some of them have kids and whatever, but so many of them come back, and that's the moment where I really go, oh, wicked, this is brilliant.
What an amazing thing to be able to do for people. And I think when I can speak on someone who has had an anxiety disorder for a number of years, and what you just mentioned there about the drive, that's one kind of example, I suppose, that face to face was very difficult for me. Looking in the eyes was very difficult. It did make me very anxious. The drive is one thing, and then the exercise is another, where you tend to open up to someone when you're distracted by something else. That's what I found anyway. And I think having that, you know, if it's kicking pads, whatever it might be, to take away the kind of initial awkwardness, I think that's really, really important for people, young people especially, you know. Can you tell us about, you've obviously got the Emerald Cup coming up next Saturday, but by the time this podcast comes out, you'll already have the gold medal, which is very good. But so you've got that, and you mentioned about in your bracket. How many people do you have in your bracket at the moment?
I don't know if they're all fully registered or if they've just put the names down, but so far I think there's 3 other girls. Okay,
and because that's the thing about some of those competitions, and people might know that you can turn up there and there might only be just one other person. You might have to go with them, you know, a couple of times, or if there could be, and of course it depends on, you know, you're a purple belt, so it's a high level. It depends on the weight class as well, of course. That's another thing that will make a difference and stuff. So, but I'm like, hopefully at this point, but you're listening to this, I'll have met Indra in person, because I'll be there just cheering on my teammates and stuff. But what have you got any? Because I find this interesting about people who do both, do MMA and do the jiu-jitsu. Have you any MMA fights lined up?
No is the answer. I've had a few injury issues that would take too long to go into too much. I'm kind of waiting to get surgery. So it's the kind of thing that I can work around for the jiu-jitsu. And like that for the MMA, especially if I'm fighting pro now, I need to be 120% for that. So there was a couple of things. I wanted to do the European Championships there. I wanted to do the World Championships, but it's all things that I just can't fully commit my body to right now. Mentally, to be honest, that's the reason I'm doing this competition, is I need to do something.
Yeah.
For here, you know, I need to push myself a little bit, and I just need to keep moving forward. And I feel like I lived for jiu-jitsu tournaments before I got properly into MMA. So I was like, I used to get so much joy out of it. So go back to that for now while I can, and then build back a bit better with my poor body. Destroy it. Like,
I don't know how you do it. I don't know how anybody does it who's this, because Jiu-jitsu is one thing, but like you say, you can work around things sometimes
Yeah.
in jiu-jitsu. But when it's MMA, and I've obviously watched people do it, I'm just like, I can't do that. I can't even think about doing it. It just looks so exhausting, as well as kind of, there's obviously so many opportunities to get injured. That's another problem.
Yeah.
This mightn't be a good question for you, Indra, because you're so busy as it is. But what do you like to do in your spare time?
Train.
Train. That's it. Yeah.
Train. Yeah. No. It is, because I suppose I had this conversation with a friend of mine the other day about kind of priorities, and I don't have much time to see my friends. I've lost touch with a lot of friends, I suppose, unfortunately. But I've got 2 kids. I've got a full-time job. When I'm not in my work, I'm trying to help out with the gym. I teach in the evenings. I'm home late. Myself and Ben, like, I leave the house before he's up in the morning, and when he comes home at night after closing the gym and cleaning the gym, I'm usually asleep. So weekends then I'll try to dedicate to the kids. But I really enjoy a lot of the family stuff. Like, I've gotten to the point where, taking the kids out somewhere for the day, when you're so busy all the time, finding those quiet, peaceful moments. And it was something when we were talking about mental health, is like the nature side of things. I think we've moved so far away from nature these days that that's really where I want to get back to with the kids as well. Just doing more stuff outdoors, doing a bit of hiking, things like that. But honestly, on a Wednesday night, when I don't have work and Ben's home with the kids, I go train. I do a K1 class, then I do a jiu-jitsu class, and then I'll happily stay and clean the gym afterwards, just to get a bit of quiet time.
Yeah, that's fair. But I also do love the fact that what you do with regards to training is something that you love. So I mean, that's it's great, because we can all talk about sitting down and watching films and listening to music and whatever else it is. But if you're doing something that you enjoy so much and being active at the same time, it's wonderful. Indra, I cannot thank you enough for giving your time to us, because with all the stuff that went on.
No, it's nice.
It was really great to talk to you, and I was really looking forward to it too, and I'm glad we did it. Could you stick around for 1 minute? I'll just close this out and I'll get a quick photo, and then we can enjoy our Saturday evening.
Super.
Thank you, Indra. Okay, I just want to also thank John for the tech, Nathan for the promotion, as always, my mom and dad, my granddad, Jaron Calvin for what they did for the podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. If, by the way, if you're listening in Galway and you want to try something different, go to Shaolin MMA, because I mean, I always shout out R1, obviously, because if someone's in Athlone, but if someone's in Galway, go down and meet Indra and Ben and get some training in. Also, we're on Spotify, Apple, Anchor, Google Podcasts if you prefer to listen on the podcast platforms. As always, thanks everyone for listening. We'll be back next week. Thanks again, Indra.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Bye.